Homeowner in Portland, Oregon went out of town, and when he came back, squatters had taken over his property. When he confronted those squatters, they beat him up. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and once again, it's coming out of Portland, Oregon. So obviously, Portland is not a landlord-friendly place. They are anti-landlord there, and they're doing everything they can to try to take away people's property rights. And that is a very important thing to remember when I'm going to be going over this story. And it's a story about a squatter. Obviously, getting a squatter in your property, that is a nightmare for most landlords. And obviously, I don't ever want it to happen to me. I'm sure that you don't want it to happen to you. But if it does happen, you need strong protections to make sure you can get these people out of your property as quickly as possible. And unfortunately, they don't have protections for the landlords in Portland. They have protections for the tenants. So if a squatter gets in your property in Portland, they basically have a free reign for however long it takes you to get through eviction court, which can be quite a while. It's absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, this landlord, he's not really a landlord. He became a de facto landlord after these squatters moved into the property that he owned. He went out of town for a while. When he came back, guess what? They had moved in, and they are basically harassing other people in the neighborhood. They're causing all sorts of issues. So I actually have a video that's covering the topic a little bit more, and I'm going to be playing it for you right now.
The homeowner wouldn't talk with us on camera for fear of retaliation from those living on the property. But over the phone, he tells KGW when he asked them to leave, they beat him up, sending him to the hospital. He hasn't been back since, but still pays $1,500 a month for his mortgage.
All he wants to do is sell, and he can't do it.
It's listed for $330,000, but they're willing to negotiate. Jones is hoping for an investor who can afford to evict the squatters, which can be a difficult process.
It costs money. You got to get an attorney, file out all these papers, and it's like 90 days minimum. But if you don't have the financial resources, you're screwed. And that's the bottom line.
All right, you saw the video, you know what's going on. And before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think, okay? What would you do in a situation where you've got a squatter up in your property and you can't get them out, and the police and the city is unwilling to help you? Okay, it's pretty bad, and I don't want to say take the law into your own hands, because, I'm sure everybody would be tempted to do that. You should go through the legal eviction process with them, but, maybe there's some, things that you can do to get them out of there a little bit quicker that are within the law. So anyway, this article is coming from KGW.com, and it says, "It's unbelievable. Squatters take over Southeast Portland home. Owner says he was beat up after asking them to leave." Let's get into it. The owner of a home in Southeast Portland is trying to sell the property, but says that he can't, ever since some strangers moved in and refused to leave. It started back in January when the homeowner left town and the property was empty. "Some guys, they just basically walked into the property, took it over," said Nathan Jones, a realtor with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Jones took over the listing last month. It's currently listed at $330,000, but that price is negotiable. He's hoping for an investor who can afford to evict those currently living there, which can be a difficult process. So yeah, that's probably what's going to happen, okay? A real estate investor who is used to being able to go through the eviction process, who is used to, going in, buying a property for cash, and hopefully fixing it up and flipping it, is going to have to buy that, go through the slow, long Portland, Oregon eviction process, get them out of there 6 months or however long later, and then go in there, clean up the exact disaster that they've created. So yeah, they're gonna have to get a pretty hefty discount on this property. I don't know what it's worth. Looking at the video, the place to me doesn't look like it's worth $330,000, but I know the real estate market up in Portland is a lot more expensive than it is here in Omaha. So So maybe 330,000 is actually significantly below what the other houses around it are selling for. But honestly, to me, to take on that sort of a burden, I'd have to make a good hefty 6-figure profit on such a property, and hopefully they're able to sell it to an investor who is able to take that kind of opportunity and, make that money. But, that's another topic. The bad news is that for now, this guy, this landlord, or this property owner's de facto landlord, is just out of luck. He's not financially capable of going through the eviction process, and it's a horrible situation to be put in. I mean, anybody to be in. If I was in this situation, if this sort of thing was going on with one of my properties right now, I mean, I would be so angry. Okay. Now, honestly, I would probably, if I had squatters in there in one of my houses, I would be like, hey, I'd call up the water or the electric company and be like, hey, can I get this water and electricity turned off? And I know they call that like an illegal eviction type of thing, right? But since the guy never had an actual lease and was actually a squatter, I wouldn't feel too bad about it. But, like I said, you should obey the law. You should follow what the law says. Don't listen to my advice. I don't want to get anybody in trouble, okay? Costs money. You got to get an attorney, file all these papers, and it's like 90 days minimum. If you don't have the financial resources, you're screwed. And that's the bottom line, he said. The homeowner didn't want to talk with KGW on camera for fear of retaliation from those living at the property. Over the phone, he claimed that when he asked them to leave this winter, the squatters beat him up, sending him to the hospital. He hasn't been back since, but still pays $1,500 a month for his mortgage. I mean, all he wants to do is sell, and he can't do it, said Jones. Well, the difference between me and this guy is, right, if I go to talk to them and, they get assaultive with me or whatever, I'm going to shoot them. I'm not joking, okay? I carry a firearm lawfully, right, because I am a law enforcement officer. And if I get attacked by somebody, and they try to beat me up, I'm going to shoot them. That's pretty simple. Now, obviously, he didn't have a firearm on him, because that would have been my advice to him. Defend yourself. Do not allow yourself to be put into the hospital by, squatters and criminals who have broken into your house. The homeowner has called the police in the city to help evict the squatters, but said he hasn't received any help. As for those living in the neighborhood, they've learned to keep their distance from 5256 Southeast Flavel Street. I just mind my own business, said Linda Harshman, who lives 2 doors down. I've noticed, frequent stopping of cars, people coming every 15 seconds. Also, police monitoring the house, said Zach E. Wilson, who lives across the street. Everybody probably feels at risk or in danger with those types of people. And that's something that's not brought up a lot, okay? Basically, the squatters are hurting the neighbors as well. It's not just the property owner who's suffering, by, the loss of their property, or, the fact that they still have to pay bills. They can't get these people out of their house. But the neighbors now have, these questionable criminal types that are in their neighborhood, and they just want them out, okay? So this really isn't helping anyone. And my hope is that, hey, the city council or somebody in power would see this sort of situation going on and create some sort of, workaround so that this doesn't happen to anyone else. But in a place like Portland, that's just not going to happen, okay? This is why I tell a lot of people who I meet, don't even invest in places like this, okay? It's just not worth it, okay? They treat criminals like victims. That's what they do in these places. They treat criminals like victims, and then they treat the law-abiding citizens as though they're the bad guy. That is ridiculous. You should never, invest a single dime in a place like that. And I honestly can't believe that anybody does.